Thank you so much. You guys are just way too kind. I appreciate that so much. I just want to say this really quickly from the bottom of my heart and my family. Man, we are so blessed to be at a church that just loves us the way that you guys do. So thank you so very much for that. We appreciate you guys. So thank you. Thank you. And if you're joining us online, man, we appreciate you guys too. A huge part of what we do. Give us a little wave in the chat. Let us know that you're there. We want to get to know you better. And so guys, hey, how have you guys been enjoying the TBH, To Be Honest series so far? My friends have done a phenomenal job at bringing the word in so many different areas. And man, I have grown. I have heard things that have challenged me in so many different kinds of ways. And so it's been a really cool series. Aquila, Luke, John, Donnie next week. And so, man, it's been phenomenal. And so I'm excited about this opportunity to come in here and kind of talk and share with you guys kind of what's on my heart. And so every time that I have an opportunity to speak, if people give me the free reins, they're like, hey, talk about whatever you want to talk about. I'm like, okay, God, what is it that you want me to say? What is it that you need for me to say? What is it that I need to hear? What is it that I need to be studying and digging deeper into? And guys, I just want to be completely transparent. Hey, I want this to be a judgment-free zone, and so please take it easy on me. But to be honest, there is a lot of things, a lot of people that are kind of getting on my nerves right now. Seriously, there really are. So I just want us to think about this, okay? I got two kids that are screaming in the back of my car, and I'm promising them, I'm like, guys, we're gonna go get ice cream. And they're like, okay, let's go. And so everybody's getting really pumped, and we're getting ready to go. We're getting in this McDonald's drive-thru. You guys probably already know the story because we've all been here, okay? We get to the speaker, and I'm like, hey, we'll take 2 ice cream cones. And a lot of the times, the response is, I'm sorry, but the ice cream machine, it's down, yes, or broken, one of the two, right? And so I know it's not their fault, right? But if you're the manufacturer, get it together, okay? So listen, that's kind of, okay. And also, another thing that's kind of been digging at me in a major way is that there's so many people that are just like me. We wait until the last 5 minutes before school's getting ready to shut down, and we're all car riders. And we're all trying to rush in at the exact same time. And we're all finagling through this little weird maze that every school in this area, for whatever reason, wants us to go through to kick our kids out of the car, to get them to this door. And so we're all getting mad. We're all yelling at each other. We just need to stop. Okay, we all need to just stop. Okay, we all need to stop. And so I kind of landed on this question. And this is a tough one for me, but I landed on the question, God, do I really have to go the extra mile in loving people that I can't stand? God, do I have to go that extra mile in loving people that, man, I don't really get along with? Do I have to go that extra mile in loving people who have wronged me in some way? Do I have to go, and now guys, let's brace ourselves, okay? This is a tough one. Do I have to go the extra mile in loving people that I don't agree with? Do I have to do that? And so when I was younger, I used to play in these bands, and we thought we were really cool. And so we were jamming, and we're living our best life. And I don't want to sell this like we were playing at the Taj Mahal or the Louisville Palace or anything cool like that. We're playing in these dingy, terrible venues where the walls are kind of falling down a little bit. The floor was always sticky for whatever weird reason. Most of the time, there's a bathroom that's not working, or maybe they throw a porta potty out in the parking lot. These are the kind of places that we were jamming. And every great now and again, you would get lucky and you would play a basement show. And these were basically when some kids' parents went out of town, and he's like, okay, I'm gonna book all these bands. And you would show up and you would jam until the police would shut that thing down. Okay, so this was the kind of stuff we were doing. We were living our best life. We were hanging out. It was a good time. And so one day, and I'm gonna tell you this, I don't know for the life of me to this day why this happened, how, or what was really going on. But one day, there was this band that we were jamming with, and they wanted to start some beef. They wanted to start beef with us, don't know why, but in between every single one of their songs, they would start throwing some shade and talking trash at us, right? They hated us because they said our music was terrible. They hated on us because we were a Christian band. Whatever the case may be, they just found a reason to beef with us. So we get up and we do our thing, and I'm gonna be honest, we weren't perfect, okay? We got up there and we did some things. And everybody disperses and goes home, but the war was definitely not over. We took this thing to the internet, okay? And this is, it only gets better, right? It only gets better from here. And so this is the days before Facebook. This is a day before MySpace or Twitter or Instagram. These are the days of LiveJournal. And so if you know what that is, let's air high five it up, okay? Because you're my people. Hey, there you are. All right, so LiveJournal, okay? So LiveJournal wasn't a thing where you put a little sentence up and then post a picture of what you ate that day. This was where people literally would post their entire life. I woke up and then here's every step of the way. Right? It was literally a virtual journal. And there wasn't a lot of privacy on this thing. You could go to anybody's live journal, comment, look, and read or whatever. And so these guys were going to all of our live journals, all of our friends, all of our family, and they were continuing with this trash talk. And so, I'm gonna confess this, okay? It wasn't in the best place. So I was kind of doing some of the same things, right? And so we were kind of talking that PG Christian talk, right? Trash talk. Where we're like, hey, bro, we're gonna own you, that kind of thing. So we were kind of being dumb, okay? I'm gonna be honest, I'm gonna confess that. And so then the day finally came where our bands were scheduled to play together once again. Okay, so we show up to this show, and it's about what you would expect. Everybody, they get up there, in between every song, they're doing the same thing. They're talking trash, they're hating on us. We get up there and we say a few things. We're not being the best examples. And so this is kind of going on back and forth. And so finally the show is over. And so here we are in this venue again, sticky floor, bathroom's not working, it smells. And this was a day when you could smoke indoors, so it was also smoky in there. And so the air was super, super thick in the room. Okay, this tension was high. And so we weren't really sure what was gonna go down, but we knew in this moment, man, something is getting ready to happen. Don't know what, but something's getting ready to happen. And so we're all on the inner rings, or outer edges of this venue. And the center of the venue, no one was there. It was like a desert wasteland. We're just all sitting on the outer rims of this place. And so people start kind of walking in circles and funneling inwards until everyone gets to the center of this place. And so there's 40 or 50 of us that are sitting there, and the anticipation is crazy. And so people start exchanging words, and I like my job here, so I'm not gonna repeat what was said, but things were said, right? And so all of a sudden, it goes from people standing to all of a sudden everybody just like a wave jumps into each other, okay? And so all of a sudden it's just piles and legs and arms are flying all over the place. And I just want to say this, I pride myself on being a dude who's like, man, I'm all about peace. Hey, let's be calm. Let's not fight, dude. We're all cool. But at this moment, if I didn't recognize you, I was probably throwing something at you. That was just kind of the way things were going in this moment. So I'm just kind of in there. I'm in the midst of this thing. And when I used to tell this story back in the day, I was like, man, we were there for 45 minutes to an hour. And then my friend Blake was like, dude, it was really like a minute and a half. But seriously, every single second when your adrenaline's high and everything's going nuts, every single second feels like 10 minutes. And so here we are, and I remember I'm sitting there, I'm praying, I'm like, God, please let there be security guards that are here that are big enough to break this thing up. And so we're sitting there, and finally things happen, and everybody disperses. But it was definitely not over. The threats and the talk continued and all of that stuff. Well, me and our friend Blake, we used to do Bible studies. We'd go to people's houses and we'd hang out and we'd read the word and we would just chat it up and we would talk about our lives. But at this time, we weren't really doing a whole lot of study because this topic really dominated our conversation. It dominated our conversation. And then one day, my friend Blake challenged us and he said, man, what if we stopped all of this and we chose to love them instead? What if we stopped adding fuel to the fire? What if we stopped hating them and we started to pray for them? What would it look like if we stopped gossiping about them and we decided, hey, we're gonna go ahead and just start building them up? What if we believed that this situation was not beyond redemption? And so you may not be in some sort of physical brawl right now in some like dingy venue, but maybe you're in a verbal one. Maybe you're kind of going back and forth with somebody. Or maybe you're not in a physical or a verbal, maybe you're in an internal one. Maybe there's somebody out there that, man, you despise them, but it's beating you up on the inside. They may not even know about it. But what if you loved them instead? I want to take a moment to kind of preface this by saying that I know a lot of people's stories in here, and there's a lot of you guys who have faced some pretty serious trauma. And I'm not asking for us to put ourselves in harm's way mentally or put ourselves in harm's way physically. But what I'm asking for us to do is to reflect on where we're at in our relationships with Jesus and see if the way that we are loving the people around us is drawing people closer to him or pushing people away. And so today we're going to look at the Sermon on the Mount. And so this is what I consider the Mount Rushmore of sermons, the greatest sermon ever preached. And so let me go ahead and set the tone for you guys real quick. So basically what is happening is Jesus is walking on the streets. I can imagine this. And all these people are following him because they're like, man, here's this guy who's done all these amazing things. And they just want to get a little bit closer to him. They want to hear his voice. They want to get close and touch his feet. And so he gets to this spot and people are just fighting to get just a little bit closer to him. And I love these scriptures because a lot of what Jesus says is in a contradiction of what the world was viewing as just. And so let's kind of jump in. We're going to read in Matthew 5. It says, you have heard that it was said, an eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. But I tell you, do not resist an evil person. If anyone slaps you on the right cheek, turn to them the other cheek also. And if anyone wants to sue you and take your shirt, hand over your coat as well. And if anyone forces you to go 1 mile, go with them 2 miles. Give to the one who asks you, and do not turn away from the one who wants to borrow from you. Okay, so there is a lot of stuff right here already for us to start to kind of unpack. An eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth. That was kind of this idea. It was a law of retaliation, and this law was put in place to prevent like escalation and excessive punishment. Jesus said, and we kind of saw that, he said, you have heard it said, you have seen this, you know this, but I'm about to tell you something that is radically different. I'm about to tell you something that is radically different. It is more important for you to give justice and mercy than to receive it. I want you to love so much that when somebody is wanting to take something from you, you give them more than they've even asked for. If a Roman soldier pulls you up off the side of the street and says, here, carry this for me for 1 mile, I want you to take it the extra mile. I want you to take it 2. If you are wronged, I want you to counter it with love. Jesus went the second mile. Jesus went the second mile. He lived there. And so how do we do that? Well, the first thing we have to do is we have to refuse the brawl. All too often we feel this need to fight. We feel this need, man, I have got to be right. Early on in my marriage, we laugh about this story now, but we were kind of figuring out how do we do this live together thing, right? We just get married, and so we were kind of pushing buttons, and every now and again we'd push the envelope to see how far can I go with this until we snap, okay? And so we were doing these things, right? And my wife, man, she's incredible, okay? But back then, she was the queen of those drop the mic moments. And so she'd come in and she'd be like, do-do-do-do, boom, and then she'd walk away. And so then I would be sitting there like stewing, and it took me a minute. And I was like, man, if I only would have said this, it would have been witty, you know? And so that was always kind of the thing. So one night she comes in and she's like, do-do-do-do, boom, and she walks off. And I'm sitting there and I'm like, oh man, what am I gonna do? And so I remember how much she hated when I'd leave the cabinet doors open in the kitchen. And so I walk in the kitchen, I open every single cabinet door, I pull every single drawer open. And the next morning, I didn't even need an alarm clock because she walks into the kitchen and all I hear is boom, 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 and everything is slamming. Guys, listen, okay? I just want you to know this, okay? I have grown a lot, okay? This is like 10 years ago, okay? I have grown a lot since then. But the point is this, is that an eye for an eye is very rarely even. An eye for an eye is very rarely even. Most of the time when someone has hurt us, we're like, okay, I'm gonna hurt you, but I wanna hurt you more. I want to hurt you more than you hurt me. It's not, man, I want to get even with you. It's, I want to hurt you, because hurt people hurt people. We've all heard that said. Have you ever seen a social media battle where something starts as one sentence, and then the next person it's like a paragraph, and the next one's like 2 paragraphs, and by the time it's all over, everybody has doctoral thesis that they've typed out, right? Because everybody's like, dude, I am the one that's right. Avocados are terrible. Pineapples don't belong on pizza, whatever, right? We're all arguing, and so we have to be right. We have to fight. And here's the truth. Refusing the brawl, refusing vengeance is God's will for his people. We see in scripture that it said that, man, if you've been slapped, go ahead and give them the other one also. If they're taken from you, give them more. By asking them to turn the other cheek, Jesus meant for his disciples, he meant for you and me to be motivated by love. What is our desire for the people who have wronged us? Is our desire to get them back, to get even, or is our desire for them to have redemption, for them to have forgiveness? See, Jesus isn't asking for us in this to sit in a corner and get pummeled. He's not asking for us to be taken advantage by every single person that comes into our world, but he's asking us to check our motives. What are your desires for those who have wronged you? Christians should be marked by a spirit of love regardless of the circumstances. We should be marked by a spirit of love. So how else do we go that second mile? We get uncomfortable. We get uncomfortable. I have this workout bike at home. It's one of those ones that have like a little screen on it with these people who are all motivational speakers that are also in way better shape than I'll ever be. And they kind of sit there and they kind of get you going, right? And so I got this bike and I'm on this thing. And I'm on some weird like 45-minute 90s reggae ride or something like that. And so I'm like sitting here, I'm going, and it's like 35 minutes in. I'm like, okay, I'm done after this. 10 minutes, I'm done. I'm just gonna get off and take a shower now. And this dude who's on the screen is like sitting there talking and he's like, hey man, whether you believe that you can or you believe that you can't, you're right. I'm like, he's right. And so I'm like sitting there and I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go. He goes, okay guys, we're gonna get uncomfortable. We're gonna get uncomfortable. We're gonna get out of our comfort zones and we're gonna push for this next 10 minutes. And so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna go. I'm gonna get out of my comfort zone. I got off, my legs felt like Jell-O. I got a shower, I felt terrible, but I probably would have maybe felt worse. I don't know, I'm just gonna say. But it would have been easy for me to jump off that thing. It would have been easy to get into the comfort zone and say, okay, I'm done with this in 10 minutes. It's kind of the same thing. It's easy for us to stay in our bubbles. It's easy for us to stay in our comfort zone and love people who love us back. When we think about loving people, it's easy to think about the people who love us back, but it's not so easy when it's the other way around. It's not so easy when we're met with resistance, when we're met with people who oppose us or reject us or disagree with us. A lot of times we find ourselves being in a place where we're like, man, I do not like them. I do not like that person. But loving them despite of that, it can be uncomfortable. It can push us. It can challenge our pride. It can challenge our self-centeredness in crazy, crazy ways. And so we're going to kind of continue reading here in Matthew and see what Jesus says. He says, you have heard that it was said, love your neighbor and hate your enemy. But I tell you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, that you may be children of your Father in heaven. He causes his sun to rise on the evil and the good, and sends rain on the righteous and the unrighteous. If you love those who love you, what reward will you get? Are not even tax collectors doing that? If you greet only your own people, what are you doing more than others? Do not even the pagans do that? Be perfect, therefore, as your heavenly Father is perfect. Right here it says it. It's easy to love people who love us back. It's comfortable to love people who love us back. And Jesus said it right there. Anybody can do that. Anybody can do that. It's easy for me to love my kids. It's easy for me to love my wife. But loving our enemies, it takes having a heart and a mind that is prepared through prayer. I believe this, friends. I believe if we took time every single day to pray to Jesus, Jesus, help me to love like you, it would make a world of difference. Because ultimately, the way that you love people demonstrates how much you love God. So when you love people, are you saying, man, you know what? You're just too much for me. Stay over here. Or maybe you're on that first mile where you're like, okay, I'm going to say I love you, but don't ask me to prove it. Don't ask me to prove that. Where are you at? If we are to love more like Jesus, then we have to love all people. And how do we know that? Because he loved all people. The sun, it sets on the good. The sun, the sun rises on the good, and the sun rises on the evil. He sends rain to the righteous, and he sends rain to the unrighteous. No matter who they are, no matter what they have done. And the big picture here is that nobody is beyond God's redemption. Nobody is beyond God's redemption. So now what do we do? How do we apply these things in our life? How do we go that extra mile in loving people? We stop looking for reasons not to. We stop looking for reasons not to. We stop looking for justification. The great prophet Hugh Jackman from the Wolverine movie one time said, you know what happened to the man who was looking for blood? He found it. And in that same way, if you go and you're looking for a reason not to love someone, guess what's going to happen? You're going to find it. I sit up here as a broken and someone who has struggled with bitterness, someone who's struggled with pride at times, someone who said things I shouldn't have said, someone who's pushed people away, hasn't treated people the best at moments in my life. And so when I ask this question, I am asking this of all of us in the room, but what would it look like if we stop putting terms and conditions on our relationships with people? What would that look like? I would love you if you were nicer to me. I would love you, but that thing that you posted or that comment that you posted on my wall, man, that really got under my skin. Man, I would love you, but you are way too liberal. I want to love you like Jesus, but man, you're way too conservative. I would love to love you, but the truth is our views, they don't line up. I would love to love you, but you know what? I know those things that you do when you go home at night. I would love to love you, but man, I just don't agree with your lifestyle. All of these ifs and all of these buts, but here's the truth. Jesus does not put a condition on his love for you. He doesn't put a condition on his love for us. So why are we putting the condition on how we love people? We have to learn to refuse the brawl. We have to learn to get uncomfortable, get out of our comfort zone. We have to stop looking for reasons not to. Jesus did this. Jesus refused vengeance. When Jesus was hanging on the cross, he said, "Forgive them, Father, for they know not what they do." Jesus was uncomfortable when he's carrying the cross down the road after being beaten, knowing that moments later he was going to be hung from it. He had every reason in the world not to do it, but he did it anyway. Why? Love. So maybe for you, going that second mile is just saying, hey, I just want to get to know you better. I know there's something going on in your life. Our relationship is strained, and maybe there's just something going on. Maybe for you, going that second mile is to stop being passive aggressive with that person at work and saying, hey, let's go get coffee sometime and just hang out. Maybe for you, going that extra mile is to stop saying terrible things about that other parent before you send your kid to their house for their weekend. Maybe for you, going that extra mile is showing the same love and respect and mercy to the people who live under the same roof as you do your friends. Maybe, and I'll personalize this, maybe for you, you going that second mile is to stop waiting for someone else to make that first move. And it's you saying, listen, hey, Dad, I know it's been a long time, but I want to work on this. We are all at a place right now in our relationship with Christ. We are all at a place right now in our relationships with people. And we could talk all day about where we're at. But where are we going? Where are we going? You know, when we were at odds with that band, I'm gonna be 100% honest with you. It revealed a lot about where I was at personally in my relationship with Jesus. I truthfully despised them. I would even go as far as to say there were probably moments where I hated them. It showed that I put these terms and I put conditions on my willingness to love people. But then that challenge was put forth and we went a different direction. Did those hurtful words, did the threats, did the belittling, did all of that stop right away? No. Was it all peace and happiness and rainbows and unicorns? No. But what did happen is one of those guys, months later, made it to my friend Blake's Bible study. And I was talking to him about this story this week, and I was kind of just, touching base, and I wanted to talk about how I was going to tell this. And he talked about how this guy walks into his house, nervous, staring at the floor, shoulders down, not knowing, man, how is this going to happen? How's this going to work? Are they going to accept me? And he was shocked when he found out that, man, they welcomed him with open arms. Hey, bro, let's hang out. Let's get some food. Let's talk about Jesus. And a year later, Blake baptized him. Blake baptized him, a guy who at one point wanted nothing to do with Jesus, a guy who at one point slandered any person that did, was baptized into the faith by a guy who chose to love him instead. So what if we believed that no one was beyond redemption? What if we believed that? What if we lived on that second mile? What if we chose to love instead? And to be honest, I think it would change the world.